Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All for attending tonight. Will the clerk please take attendance?
We have 6 council members present this evening, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Specker is on the phone, and Councilmember Collins is absent.
Thank you. Action to approve the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Wendell?
Aye.
Avery?
Aye.
Duran?
Aye.
Niemeyer?
Aye.
Specker?
Aye.
Tilton Burn?
Aye.
All right. Go on to open forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the council on an item not listed on tonight's agenda? Please state your name and address, please, sir.
Yes, I'm Jeff Struy. I live at 2004 Rio Grande Avenue in Brookings. There's been events over the last couple of weeks, and it culminated this past weekend in Colorado. And I want to read a quote to you from probably the hero at Club Q in Colorado Springs. He said, "We are going through a lot of emotions as a family and as a brewery where this event happened. The loss of lives and the injured are in our hearts. We are devastated and torn. We love our LGBTQ community and stand with them. This cowardly and despicable act of hate has no room in our lives or business. It has left us and our community scarred but not broken. Much love to everyone." There was also an event that happened on campus here last week, I believe. But that's kind of not what I want to talk about specifically. What I want to address is location. The event itself is perfectly fine, I think, with most of the people in the community. The problem is with children in attendance. I saw photos of the event, and there's nothing appropriate that happened there that's suitable for children. So with that, what I think is going to get proposed will be legislation that will confine these shows to maybe strictly a private entity, and generally with an age of 21 and older, much like any other, like a strip club or to that effect, like a bar setting, much like Club Q in Colorado Springs. This is, I'm a veteran, as I think most everybody is aware. I read about a month ago the First Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees everybody a right to free speech. There are limitations to free speech, one of which is you cannot yell fire in a theater setting, which would cause a stampede. Another thing that might not set well with free speech would be allowing children to attend these events. So with that, I am fully in favor of these shows. The location, that's kind of a concern, and we're going to leave that up to the Board of Regents and SDSU. But for right now, I just want to add that my prayers are with those families in Colorado Springs also. I thank you.
Twenty-second Avenue. And I'm just here to make a brief statement on the events in Colorado, as I do believe they tie into our community and state as well. On the eve of Transgender Remembrance Day, we all woke up the next day to a tragedy at Club Q, where LGBTQ people were made the target of hate and violence. Club Q was made to be an inclusive space for everyone. People went there wanting to live their lives, be happy, or maybe just forget about their problems for a few hours with their friends. Dozens were gunned down just because of who they are. 5 of them are dead. The rhetoric, which has been ratcheted up in this country from federal, state, and local levels, as we have heard today, have been fueling this violence against the LGBTQ community. This rhetoric is rife with lies and hate. Even the likes of our own Kristi Noem and Fred Deutsch in Watertown have taken part. This isn't just the gay bashing that took place in the 1980s and the 1990s. This is far worse in nature. And I tie that to Brookings here. If we want to keep, I emphasize keep, Brookings a safe and inclusive community for all, we need to be loud. We need you, me, and all of the citizens in this community to stand up and defend the LGBTQ community when hate is spoken publicly. I'm a proud member of Brookings. This community is a fabulous community. I want to help while I can to build on what we've already done to make this a safe and inclusive community. And we need all of you, leaders and citizens, we need to speak up and be loud. It would be a shame if the great things Brookings has done were to become overshadowed by becoming the next site of a tragic event like Club Q or Pulse that happened in Florida a few years ago. We're not going anywhere. And I know some people might think this is redundant, but we can all see why some people like me are speaking today. To our transgender siblings, you are loved. Those that died: Kelly Loving, Daniel Aston, Derek Rump, Ashley Paw, and Raymond Green Vance. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more public comments? All right, we'll move on. Consent agenda, approval of consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agendas? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on any of the items in the consent agenda? Does council have any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay, now we have presentations and reports. Maybe the Grand Poobah from the Hobo Day Committee wants to come up. We have a report from the committee.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. It's good to see you all in a downtown at sundown role this time around, being in the chambers. I just want to say from the behalf of the Hobo Day Committee at SDSU and many students on campus, a humongous thank you to your support and continued kindness for the tradition of Hobo Day. I'm going to go through just a couple of things I'd like to share with you all today about the impact that you all have on the community of SDSU and for Brookings as well with Hobo Day. The Hobo Day committee is kind of comprised of an events team, marketing, and parade. I want to run through a couple of different events and some projection numbers for you all about this past year for Hobo Day on October 24th through 29th. Ride the Rails, one of our bigger community events in downtown Brookings. We had an estimated anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 people in attendance for that event. It was also simultaneous at the same time as the downtown trick or treat. So a lot of fun to kind of have that spill over into our area as well and kind of share that evening with the community Brookings, families, their children, and students alike. Bum Meal, another big event here on campus. We hosted a record number, 772 students from SDSU, got free meals because of the gracious homes here in Brookings and the surrounding area, 63 to be exact, welcoming students in their houses with open arms and a free home-cooked meal. So we appreciate the community for stepping in and helping out with that this year again. Bonfire, a bigger event that's kind of coming into its own these past couple of years on my time in the committee, hosted in attendance around 600 students or so. This is about double the size from last year as well. So super excited about how those events continue to grow and see people from all backgrounds of Brookings attend those with us. Marketing is a big part of what we do on the Hobo Day Committee. It's a large brand in conjunction with SDSU and Brookings alike. The month of October, Hobo Day Facebook page had a reach of nearly 140,000 people. So something that's continuing to grow and be a large impact for us as students, as well as the community Brookings at the same time. Some big posts I want to highlight for you all on our Hobo Day video on the 23rd of October reached around 2,282 people, or sorry, reached around 16,500 people with over 2,200 interactions. Our Hobo Week and Day outline activities on the 24th saw 42,917 people reached with over 4,500 interactions. And then our date announcement for 2023, October 14th, saw a reach of 19,371 with over 1,200 interactions as well. The parade is probably the biggest thing that many people in the community know, and you guys probably as well. We had 126 total entries for 2022. That's a huge number to kind of see this year, which is amazing. We had a bunch of different local bands from South Dakota and mostly around the area as well participate. We had Brookings High School and Middle School. Arlington, Estillane, Ipswich, and Miller, South Dakota all came as well. And then the Hobo Day Parade has been live streamed since 2014. Anybody can watch it online. This year, 586 people watched it live while it was going on October 29th. 1,269 have watched it in the first 24 hours. And then as of today, roughly 4,000 people have watched that as well. So getting a large online audience with YouTube and things like that too. Once again, the Hobo Day Committee is very excited about your continued support for Hobo Day, the tradition. Reaching 110 years has not come easy, so having a big partnership with the Community of Brookings has been extremely valued from a student perspective on campus. I'd say that as I round up my last 3 weeks on campus as a student, and not a place like Brookings that I'm eager to leave, I want to stay around as long as I possibly can. So it's meant a lot to be a part of this community the past couple of years, staying here this summer, putting on Downtown at Sundown, and continuing with Hobo Day has been more than amazing. So thank you to your continued support. We apply through a big funding from you guys, the Student Promotion Fund on campus. We received just north of $20,000 this year. It helps continue this tradition, but not only continue the tradition, but keep it continuing to grow. Hobo Day is not something that's stagnant. It will continue to get better and be better for the community of Brookings. So once again, just a humongous thank you and shout out to all of you. Your continued support and work does not go unnoticed. We care about that tremendously. The student body cares about being in Brookings tremendously. It's why we keep coming back every single year. So thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it and look forward to coming back every year for the next Hobo Day and Hobo Days to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Reagan. Any Councilmember Wendell?
And your committee, I just wanted to commend you on an outstanding Hobo Day. The weather cooperated, which is always a treat. But truly walking down the parade route, folks were 6 deep from the Campanile to the end of Main Street. And so you all certainly promoted the event. And I think our community benefits tremendously when we've got a Hobo Day that is that festive, but also has folks throughout the core of the community really celebrating before they go to the game. So thank you for that. Could you remind us, Hobo Day 2023, what the date is?
It is October 14th next year. So right in the middle of October. It'll be a lot of fun, 111 years of the tradition.
Fantastic.
So thank you. Thank you, Councilor Wendell.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Comments?
No,
I do-
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thanks very much to SDSU and the city.
I'm not sure if we have an SDSU report tonight. Probably not. Let's move on. All right, there are no contracts or change orders this time. We have a couple first readings. Item 8A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 22-039, authorizing the budget amendment number 10 to the 2022 budget. Ashley Wrench, our for us.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is ordinance 22-039, authorizing amendment number 10 to the 2022 budget. This amendment has 2 parts. First of all, the Brookings Food Pantry facility is nearing completion, and an additional $175,000 is needed to add to the budget in order to cover the final costs. Contributions will be made from the United Way and Brookings County to cover these additional costs, and the city's financial commitment to the project remains at $300,000. Part 2 moves $20,000 from the Activity Center capital account in the CIP fund to the Park and Rec improvements account to pay for a boiler replacement at Larson Ice Center. There were some project savings earlier this year in the Activity Center account that allow us to utilize those funds to make urgent repairs at the Ice Center without having to increase the budget. Number 13th, and with that, I'll stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Council have any questions or comments? All right, we'll have second reading on this on December 13th meeting. Item 8B, introduction and first reading on ordinance 22-040, amending chapter 94, zoning of the city of Brookings pertaining to sections 94-131, 94-132, 94-133, 94-134, 94-135, 94-135.5, 94-136, 94-137, 94-161, and 94-399.1. For purposes of amending the maximum allowable heights in the B1, B2, B2A, B3, B4, B5, Industrial 1, Industrial 1R, Industrial 2 District, and associated buffer yard requirements. Mike Struck, Community Development Director, will review this item.
Appreciate the reading of all of those numbers. Those are just the various sections of our zoning ordinance. In a nutshell, we're looking at amending the height allowance in our commercial and industrial districts. And if approved, we would also make some minor adjustments to the buffer yard requirements. In particular, you'll see asterisks by certain sections of this that if you get over 60 feet in height, now your buffer yard requirement would increase. And so this kind of comes about as we were looking at, how are we developing, is the city's zoning ordinance kind of a hindrance to allowing upward development? And so we kind of took a hard look at that. In the past few months, we've amended the height ordinance in the R3 and R3A districts to allow multifamily apartments to go up to 60 feet in height. And so we looked at doing something very similar with some of our commercial districts. And so that's really what's the emphasis behind this is in the B1, B2, B2A, B3 districts is just increasing that height allowance. And then we looked at in the B4 district and the industrial districts, should we have a height restriction? And primarily the reasoning behind that is those zoning districts encompass larger lot areas. They're generally and when we had talked with the fire chief about this and the chief building official, when you start going up in height, there's different construction methodologies and technologies that are utilized, so there was no safety concerns from a fire perspective. And we just looked at it, and it seemed that maybe our height restrictions were a little bit restrictive to allowing or meeting some of the needs of our local business community. And so this does come to you as a 6-to-1 recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval. The one nay vote was simply associated with the B1 district, the downtown area, associated with historic preservation in those areas. That's a completely separate process that an applicant would have to go through. With the historic districts, they look at the average height of the facades on that street frontage, and then there's a 10% variance that is allowed. So new construction, new additions would have to stay within that 10% variance. So for example, if the average building height was all 40 feet, you'd be allowed a 10% variance, so the addition could go up to 44 feet. But also keep in mind is the B1 district is larger than the historic district. So there are areas within the B1 zoning district that are outside of your designated historic districts. And we wanted to at least provide the ability or the opportunity as development or redevelopment opportunities present themselves to look at having the ability to go upwards with development patterns. With that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
Thanks. Questions on this particular item? Any questions from council? Comments? Councilmember Tilton Burn.
I'm perhaps at the second reading to bring maps that kind of show these different zones, just so we can, like, for example, with the B1 district, get a better idea of where that is located and maybe where it expands beyond just that downtown historic area?
We can, yeah, we can make that available, our zoning map, and show all the different districts around the community and highlight the downtown historic district.
Thank you.
Councilmember Avery.
Mike, can you give us some perspective on that height as to, the buildings that have been added on to downtown, where they've added another story, like the Grunwald building and the Wooden Legs building, where they added a story? Are those approaching 60 feet, or are they anywhere near that?
No, I think without having the exact heights, going off memory, I believe when I checked like the Skinner's building, it was about 40 feet in height. That's one of the taller ones downtown. To put another thing in perspective, we actually checked today is the Co-op elevator building, which is across the street to the south of the Public Safety Center, is approximately 175 feet tall. So 175 feet is that one. I think the Masonic Temple Lodge is roughly somewhere around 35 feet tall. I know like the Ben Franklin building, when they looked at doing that second story addition, they had to go through this process through the State Historic Preservation Office and ultimately through the local Brookings Historic Preservation Commission with a case report, and they had to do that average height variance, and so they stayed within that. So they're probably looking roughly in the 30, 35 feet in height there. So we don't have a lot of tall buildings in our downtown. Most of them are approximately 2 stories, which generally they don't go much higher than about 30 feet.
Right. Any other questions on this item?
No, I just want to tell Mike that I'm glad that the zoning office knows all those different codes.
All right. Thanks, Bonnie. We'll have second reading and action on this in the December 13 meeting. If the public has any questions, please relay them to Mike at the Community Development, or maybe reach out to one of our council members, and we'll get the answer for you. Thank you. Okay. Item 9, public hearings and second readings. 9A, public hearing and action on Resolution 22-090, amendment to the Comprehensive Plan's future land use map. Mike Strucker, Community Development Director, will review this item for us.
Mayor and council members, the resolution tonight before you tonight is an amendment. Location is along 20th Street South. I'll show it on the overhead map here. It's a particular is outlined in the red area. Our future land use map identified this area as an urban low intensity, and then there's a portion on the very east edge that is in the open space wetlands area, kind of along the bike trail, along Maderi Avenue going to the south. The proposal before you tonight is to amend that to allow for a high-density residential land use in that category. There's a development project that is looking at utilizing the land, and it would fit more closely associated with a high-density residential. You can see that that high-density residential is to the south as well as north across the street. And then there's the urban low intensity is based more for kind of low intense commercial office type uses. And so to look at what the developers would like to propose in this area, it just wasn't consistent with that urban low intensity type use. And so the request is to amend the future land use map to a high density residential. It does come to you with the unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and I would stand for any questions you may have.
Public hearing on this item. Is there any public comment? Close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve. Did you want to make a comment? All right. All right. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Council have any questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 9B, public hearing and action on an amended initial development plan for Block 3B of Prairie Hills Addition. Mike Strucker, Community Development Director, will review this item also.
This item is directly related to the previous item on the future land use map amendment. This area was rezoned to a planned development underlying B2 zoning designation, and an initial development plan was submitted and approved in 2013. Over the course of time, things have changed a little bit. The proposal before you tonight is an amendment to that initial development plan, and this is kind of the project site they're looking at. I'll start kind of on the east side of the project. They're looking at doing a senior living community. And so looking at doing apartments on the east side. These would be enclosed garages underneath some of the apartment uses, detached garages here, and then some parking along the east side. You would move in, transition into some assisted living facility units kind of through this south central portion of the site, and a little bit here in this corridor. You have your administrative offices kind of at the front entrance and into this wing, and then on the west side is your memory care units. And so this is kind of the proposal that they're looking at. It's more of a residential type intensity use. As part of the initial development plan, they are asking for a couple of amendments, and they are to allow the apartments in a B2 and like a nursing assisted living facility as an acceptable use in the B2 zoning district. Those uses are not allowed by right in the B2 zoning district. Through the plan development process, they have the ability to ask for exceptions, ask for uses to be added into. And then they show their parking. They have a shared access coming off of 20th Street South. There's an existing business here to the west. And then there's storage units kind of to the southwest of the site that kind of serve the landing townhome development in Prairie Hills. There's some parking available for staff down in this area. Parking up in the front area for overflow or guest parking to the apartment, as well as to some of the assisted living. And then there's your handicap accessible, as well as overflow parking. The Planning Commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval on this. The one thing they did suggest, though, is making sure that there's the double row of trees up here to help kind of screen this western parking lot area. And with that, we'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Blaine Warzeka with HME Management for the developer for this proposed project. And
Sir, please bring your mic up closer. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Perfect. Again, Lane with HME Management, the developer for this proposed project. I think Mike did an excellent job kind of explaining the project. And so, we are looking at that senior living project with the 3 uses that we would want to be added within the PDD, and, walking through the entire site. I just want to say that, we met with the DRT a few times and had a lot of good feedback from them, and implemented as many changes from that feedback into the site as possible. And, we do think that this particular use in this location on this development would be a huge addition to the city, not only economically through employment, but also there's a huge need for the senior living within the community of Brookings. All proven through our independent studies as well as our individual kind of in-house marketing studies as well. So, for those reasons, yeah, we're interested. We looked at quite a few sites here within Brookings, ultimately settled on this one simply because, we are right on Maderi, intersection of Maderi and 20th, so high visibility. That's always great for business. Plus, we have the townhome, the landing development, kind of adjacent to us, which also ties into the senior living as being a 55 plus, kind of acts as a feeder community there. So there's a lot of synergies with the site. And so, with that, yeah, we are asking for the additional uses within the PDD. And if you have any questions about the project in particular, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks for your gentlemen. Okay, thank you. Any, Mike, or Councilmember Wendell?
Thank you, Mayor. Could just ask a few. I know there were some deliberations around the commercial corridor, and in particular that parking that's on the western edge of the parking. I'm guessing that you were asked to consider what impact moving that parking to the rear of the facility might have on your current layout. Can you talk some about how, if that would disrupt what's happening internal to the facility, if that parking lot were moved behind the building, which I know was suggested at one point?
Yes, for sure. And so, yeah, we, that was one of the items that came up during the DRT meetings. Again, appreciative of the feedback throughout that process. And, ultimately it came down to kind of how these facilities operate. And so we had a few meetings with our operation teams and our designers. And, what it boiled down to is, that kind of intermediate wing as you look at the site plan is where our cafeteria, our kitchen is located. And so one item that came up was food delivery. And so this is a main access point for, they're not full-size trailers, semi-trucks that deliver food, but, they are 32 feet in length. And having proximity right there straight off, you can kind of see that sidewalk that ties in. That's a direct access for our food delivery system, which is a key component of our operations. Another item was the handicap accessible access, obviously being a senior living facility, proximity to main entrances and things like that is a high priority for us. And so keeping the parking located at the front entrance was another reason why, we ultimately decided to request that the parking remain where it's at. It ties into the security of the building. And so if you take that parking, you rearrange it to the southwest corner, you have your assisted living and your memory care. Those are your more restricted in terms of security and compared to your independent living for obvious reasons. And so, you'd be requesting that visitors and employees and, any kind of overflow that you might have would have to walk through those restricted areas, or you'd have to kind of redesign those to accommodate for that. And then again, ultimately with our front entrance, we put a lot of design and thought into kind of that. When you first walk in, it's a really big first impression as any business, but more especially in senior living, just with the decision for families to have to put these members into the home. You want it to be welcome, you want to be inviting. We have a reception area, we have our admin offices, our exam rooms. The main entrance really is kind of, to design to handle the not only visitors but families, things like that. So I mean, those are just our top priorities, of kind of why we requested, and then taking consideration the the intent with the commercial corridor, and obviously we want this to be a landmark site within Brookings, and we certainly do. Hopefully we can kind of present that too with some of the preliminary renderings that we have. With the additional screening, things like that, we do believe that it would be a low impact kind of on the intent with that commercial corridor district. So.
Any questions for this gentleman?
In the previous item on our agenda was that a small portion of this site goes through it, and it appears as though there will either be structure or parking lot. What is the plan that is in place now to kind of mitigate some of the water issues that may come along with that being a wetland area?
Yeah, so we, going into these developments, we take a lot of consideration, and obviously we want to mitigate our risk as much as possible to avoid future issues like that. And so we actually had, our topographic study or survey done by the local engineering company here in town. We also engaged with a local wetland specialist to complete a wetland survey, and ultimately the report did not show any wetlands within the project area as definable by the Corps of Engineers. And so that report's been submitted. We did go ahead and do that due diligence in the front end just to ensure that, as well as spend money on the geotechnical report. And so that's kind of everything subgrade. So they go and they do a couple borings, they figure out the soil quality and things like that, where the water level or the water table is. So we have that report, and our engineers are actively looking at that just to further mitigate and plan for that. Our building is also designed to be above the newly considered floodplains that are going to be issued by FEMA, for those that you are aware of that. So we're aware of that and incorporating that into our design to make sure that, our finished floor for that project, it never has to be within the floodplain, so.
It's good to hear that you were looking at not only the current FEMA, but also the anticipated FEMA information. I am curious to know, kind of in relation to what Councilman Wendell was saying, the parking on the front was obviously something that was discussed with the development review team. It sounds like from Planning Commission, rather than relocating that parking, the thought was perhaps to add, I think as you have mentioned, the additional double row of trees. Is that something that you would be favorable to if that was proposed?
Yes, no, we fully expect, and we kind of have it already designed into our project to have that double row of screening just to further provide that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gentlemen? Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it. Any other public comments or questions? Close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Council have any other questions or comments? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. In the work around the commercial corridor, I think for folks that have been following our deliberations around new construction or modifications on those corridors, they know that one of the concerns we've had is trying to either screen parking or moving it behind the building so that the street front really it puts emphasis on the structure. In this particular case, that's hard to accomplish, in part because of the layout of the building. Even if we moved the parking behind this building, it wouldn't bring the building forward. It would just keep the green space at the front of the building. Is that an accurate portrayal, Mike?
To stay within the design, yeah. The lot on the west side would essentially become green space, and then you'd expand the parking down in the southwest corner of the site. The only way to really accomplish it differently is you'd have to redesign the building to try and pull it further to the north and closer to the street. I believe, the primary discussion was really on that western, and that's what we were looking at the development review team, and the planning commission looked at it, and ultimately the planning commission felt that with the additional row of screening of the trees up there, it just seemed like it was more logical for the flow of the building and the operations and the transitions from the various stages within the facility flowed better, leaving the design of the building as is.
Thank you for that clarity. I thought Lane made a point too that I had not considered, which was the value of a centralized entry point, which if you decentralized parking would be hard to accomplish. And I think in a facility of this nature, that is and should be a priority. And I also think the proximity of that parking to the memory care unit is an additional consideration. So I know we have pushed really hard to ensure that this commercial corridor accomplishes a couple things. And one of them is to push the parking behind facilities, but I think it's hard to accomplish what they're trying to in this facility by doing that. And so it seems like the landscaping might be the compromise here, and it sounds like that's where the Planning Commission landed as well. So for those that have been watching us deliberate over the commercial corridor over the last couple of months, that's why I land on this one differently maybe than the last time we debated this topic.
The motion on the table, does that include the stipulations that were outlined by the Planning Commission where it would include the double row of trees?
Good question, Mike. Is that comment about the extra rows of trees, is that included in this if we approve it?
Or do we need to specifically state that in our motion?
Word to you from the Planning Commission is basically their site plan layout. And I guess, you know, the three things that they're really asking for is to allow the assisted living, memory care, and apartments as allowable uses. And I forgot to mention is there's 8 garages on the east side. Typically, we don't allow towards parking requirements, and they are requesting it to be included. And then the last part is essentially the double row of landscaping along that western parking lot. So, Steve, I guess technically, would they have to include that in their motion, or is it assumed because they're showing those things on the site plan? What we do is once it's approved, we typically take the site plan and we type in those conditions, and then we have the mayor sign off on the site plan with those conditions as part of them.
I know that in a couple of the materials in front of us tonight, we just saw 2 review team and 1 from Planning Commission. They were just slightly different in what they did around the parking. And so I'm just curious in terms of clarification, which motion is on the table currently?
The Planning Commission's motion is the one that you would consider.
Currently, okay.
And I would make reference to those conditions if that's your intent.
So
Part of the motion.
So it would be fair to say that the motion on the table is to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation?
Correct.
Okay. And I don't know if that's a change that's desired by or required by the one who made the motion, so just for clarification.
Can I friendly that, or should I?
Yep.
Okay, then I would do so.
Any other questions or comments? Maybe I should have asked I should ask Lane, how many units are there in the apartments and then the assisted living and then the memory care? So the public knows what's coming up.
Yeah, for sure. The current plan is to have the 40 independent living units, 39 assisted living units, excuse me, and 27 memory care units.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Please call the roll.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 9C, public hearing and action on a temporary alcohol application from St. Thomas More Catholic School to operate within the city of Brookings, South Dakota on February 4, 2023 for a winter gala and grand auction to be held at 1700 A Street South. Bonnie Foster, our city clerk, will review this item for us.
Mayor, council members, and members of the public, this application for a temporary alcohol license is for February 4th. It's being presented to you from the St. Thomas More Catholic School. This is an annual fundraising event that they have. It's also considered educational and charitable, so it qualifies for the temporary alcohol permit. This event will take place at St. Thomas More Catholic Church on their 8th Street South location. If approved, this is the 3rd year that the council has authorized this request for the temporary license. Michelle with the St. Thomas More School is present tonight. If you have any questions for her, staff does recommend approval.
Thank you, Bonnie. Open public hearing on this item. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Does council have any questions or comments? Bonnie, you have a comment or a question?
No comments or questions?
Thank you, Bonnie. All right, please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 10A, action and resolution on 22-091, annexing the north 18.84 acres of Track 1 of BMU WTP Water Treatment Plant addition, formerly Track 1 Hanson addition, in the northwest quarter of Section 20, Township 110 North, Range 49 west of the 5th PM. Brookings County, South Dakota. Mike Strucker, Community Development. This item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The resolution action before you tonight is a voluntary annexation from Brookings Municipal Utilities to annex of land along on the east side of 34th Avenue for their water treatment plant addition. It does meet the statutory requirements of state law, being adjacent to existing city limits. The city limit boundary is actually shown on the overhead in the green line. The yellow rectangle is the parcel that is seeking to be annexed. For the folks at home, is just east from Bell Brands, north of Rounds Construction, Cook's Waste Paper and Recycling. It is a voluntary annexation. It does meet the statutory requirements of the state of South Dakota, and this comes to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Does the council have any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Tilden Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker.
Motion passes. Motion passes. Item 10B. Action on Resolution 22-089, amendment to the consolidated fee schedule. Ashley Wrench, our Senior Finance Manager, will review this item.
Council, this is Resolution 22-089, amending the consolidated fee schedule. This resolution updates the fees for Larson Nature Center, increasing the atrium fee per hour from $50 to $75, and adding a special event package for $500 and a deluxe event package for $800. Additionally, the city will assume full responsibility for the activity center operations as of January 1st, 2023. So we'll be adding the community room rental fees to the schedule. This includes $30 per hour for the community room, a setup fee if renters would like to access it the night before for $25, and the additional flat fee for $50 if the kitchen will be used. This is fairly consistent with the rates that are currently being charged for the facility, but we just converted it to an hourly rate to be more compatible with our rental software. Staff recommends approval of this ordinance, or this resolution as presented, and with that, I'll stand by for any questions. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, does council have any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilden Burn.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, Ashley. Progress report. Jake Meshi, our Assistant City Manager, will provide a progress report.
Good evening. The November 2022 progress report. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our food insecurity, this will house multiple nonprofits to include the United Way, Brookings Food Pantry, Senior Commodity, as well as the Brookings Backpack Program. Some of the work that's in progress right now and on the very near future is tile, adding in the freezer and cooler, doors, frames, cabinets, mechanicals, as well as electrical lights and doors. You can see here in our pictures that they are making wonderful progress, and it does start to take shape as a functional building. Some of the upcoming work, I don't know if it's fair to call it long range anymore, given that we're nearing the end, fortunately, is working on floors, finishing the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, completing out the punch list, completing those final cleanings. And we're excited to announce that everything is on schedule, perhaps still slightly ahead. Move-in plan for January of 2023. Just with the timeline of the project, there were a few items that weren't wrapped up in winter, so in spring we do know we'll have to do some exterior painting, landscaping, and sealing of joints that we just ran out of a little bit of nice weather for. But for all intents and purposes, things are going very well. Next slide. The interchange, this is another project that is now done for this construction season. All the progress that was desired to be made this year was, so we're still on track for the substantial completion of July in 2023. Items that will be done during the next construction season include paving, curb and gutter, and a shared use path which will be done in next spring and summer, again with that substantial completion still on track for July 2023. The annual overlay project is another one that is wind down there, as you can see via the picture as well as the text on the screen. A number of the work has been completed. Concrete sidewalk repairs will continue as long as the weather allows, and that is an item that will carry into next year as well. At this point, the contractors are just finishing up a few punch list items on this project. Swiftel Center hosted 24 event days in November. They held the Brookings PRCA Rodeo with just over 3,000 attendees. They did experience record-breaking gross ticket as well as food and beverage sales. The picture on the lower right just shows the amazing staff there and how quickly they can turn that around. That is a 400 attendee wedding that was set up and successfully held just 5 days after that facility was completely filled with dirt and hosting the largest PRCA rodeo in our community's history. So just wonderful staff out there and able to do a turnaround and host a variety of diverse events. Lastly, I want to remind everyone that the open invitation to the annual Mayor's Holiday Party and Celebration Awards event will be held on Thursday, December 1st from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Swiftel Center. As you can see via the invitation, if you would like to go and bring a guest, please RSVP via telephone or by email to our city clerk, Bonnie Foster. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Thanks, Jake. Anybody have any questions, comments? Only comment I would have is, Jake, we had a pretty painful construction summer. By the looks of it and knowing of some upcoming projects, it's not going to be any better next summer. We'll have some work being done on South 22nd Avenue from where the radio station, where it stopped, all the way down to 8th Street South. We haven't put out that for bid yet, but we're assuming that we're going to go forward with that project. We also will be having a water line replacement all the way along 20th Street South to the water tower from 22nd west to the water tower. So there's going to be a little bit of pain. Obviously, we'll have some maintenance done on some other streets. I have talked to BMU and have expressed with our city manager that we'll get a little bit more public information out there so people are aware of when things get done. Our public works director is nodding his head. He knows that we're going to have to deal with this. And I just want the public to know what's happening before it does so that they can think about alternate routes. I know 20th isn't going to be tore up completely. They're going to do it in sections. That'll make it a little bit less painful. But we are going to have quite a few improvements done next summer also. And along with that, it's progress. And so we need to have these services done. The pipe on 20th Street South is going to be much larger so that we'll be able to get more water to the southwest corner of town. It's all for the better of the city. So with that being said, does council have any comments or future things on the agenda they'd like to see? I know Bree has something that she wants to announce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is always looking for ways to increase opportunities of engagement with community members and to continually be accessible and visible. And so I'm really excited to announce the Council Community Office Hours pilot program. So what this is it's a really informal way to meet different council members. We'll be running this quarterly for a couple of hours at different locations in the community. So our first one is going to be Thursday, December 8th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. at Cool Beans downtown. Bonnie, Wayne, and I are going to be the first ones, so thank you to both of them for volunteering as well. And like I said, it doesn't really have an agenda. It's just a meet and greet. It's a time to ask questions, get updates on the city. It can be a little less intimidating than coming to a council meeting, or if you see us at the grocery store, which you're welcome to talk to us as well. But hope to see everyone there at Cool Beans on December 8th. Thank you.
Chilton Burn.
I actually have a listed as public meeting so that if multiple council members wanted to join and we had
Well, I
a
think we're
quorum,
gonna-
that it would be allowed.
We're going to try and limit it with 3. But we still will announce that we're going to be available. Sherry will probably put that information out, and unless we have more than 4 people there, it probably won't be a stated meeting. So it'll just be an informational situation, and the public is more than welcome to ask questions, and if they can't answer them, certainly can get back to them. So I think it might be another good route to engage the public. Any other questions, comments? All right, so our December 13 meeting, we're going to have a consent agenda. There's going to be some surplus items that'll be declared on there. We have a liquor renewal for Craft Restaurant, 5-year midterm renewal. January and December board appointments, presentations. We will have our ex officio reports for the hospital and BMU. Don't know if we'll have a students association because they may be on the road already. So ordinance, we don't have any first readings as of yet. We have contracts and change orders. We got Humane Society agreement, city attorney contract and renewal, or annual review. Bid awards for hayland lease and cropland lease for 3 of our properties. Second readings on the 2 items we had first readings on tonight. And then we will have an executive session for a personnel matter, and there will be action after the executive session. Review on our city manager's performance package this year. And then with that all being said, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.